After months of waiting, uncertainty, and speculation, Ukad have finally released a joint statement with Dillian Whyte with regards to the adverse finding in one of his samples for his fight against Oscar Rivas earlier on this year. So they've made a resolution, they've come out with an official joint statement with Dillian Whyte. And this really has come out of the blue because it was only yesterday they were doing interviews with Dillian Whyte trying to get some details out of him, and he was acting like he had no idea when this situation would be resolved. So I'm going to read the statement to you guys in full. So strap in. It's not that long, but there's a few words here. I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. So the statement goes as follows. UK anti-doping and the professional boxer Dillian Whyte can today jointly confirm that Mr. Whyte was charged with an anti-doping rule violation earlier this year, but that this charge has now been withdrawn. The charge was brought after a sample provided by Mr. Whyte on the 20th of June 2019 indicated the presence of 2 metabolites of a steroid. Ukad initiated an investigation with which Mr. Whyte cooperated fully. Ukad has accepted the explanation provided by Mr. Whyte, and in accordance with the UK anti-doping rules, the charge against Mr. Whyte has been withdrawn. This would ordinarily mean that Ukad would not make any public statement in accordance with the applicable confidentiality rules to which Ukad is subject. However, since certain confidential information relating to this matter, including the fact of the initial charge, has unfortunately made its way into the public domain, Ukad and Mr. Whyte have agreed to take the unusual step of releasing the following limited information to put an end to speculation concerning Mr. Whyte's status. The case details are as follows. In respect to Mr. Whyte's drug testing results, the following points are relevant. There is nothing in Mr. Whyte's longitudinal urinary profile to suggest that he has used steroids. The levels of metabolites found in Mr. Whyte's 20th of June 2019 sample were extremely low. Mr. Whyte had provided a urine sample to VADA on the 17th of June 2019, 3 days before his 20th of June 2019 sample, which was tested by a WADA accredited laboratory and which returned a negative result, including for the metabolites in question. Mr. Whyte provided several other doping control samples to Ukad and VADA between the 20th of June and 20th of July 2019, i.e. the date of his fight with Oscar Rivas, all of which also tested negative. In light of the above points, the trace amounts of metabolites found in the 20th of June 2019 sample are consistent with an isolated contamination event, and they are not suggestive of doping. Having rigorously scrutinized and investigated the detailed, factual, and scientific evidence provided by Mr. Whyte, Ukad is satisfied that the presence of the very low amounts of metabolites in his 20th of June 2019 sample was not caused by any fault, negligence, or wrongdoing on Mr. Whyte's part, and given the circumstances, could not have affected the fight between Mr. Whyte and Mr. Rivas on 20th of July 2019. Indeed, prior to that fight, an independent tribunal considered a number of the above factors before deciding to permit Mr. Whyte to participate. Following that preliminary ruling, Ukad continued its investigation and Mr. Whyte provided further evidence in his defense, which has culminated in Ukad's decision to withdraw the charge. Mr. Whyte acknowledges that based on the test results reported to Ukad relating to his 20th of June 2019 sample, Ukad acted in accordance with the UK anti-doping rules by issuing the initial charge and in the conduct of its investigation. Pursuant to the terms of the UK National Anti-Doping Policy, Ukad must always act in the interests of justice and not solely for the purpose of obtaining determinations adverse to athletes. In the present case, Ukad considers that means that the appropriate course of action is for the charge against Mr. Whyte to be withdrawn and does so in accordance with the relevant anti-doping rules. The British Boxing Board of Control, having delegated responsibility for anti-doping matters to Ukad, has been informed of the resolution of these proceedings against Mr. Whyte. Note, the UK anti-doping rules place restrictions on reporting information relating to ongoing anti-doping proceedings, including that Ukad will not comment publicly on the specific facts of a pending case, except in response to public comments attributed to a charged athlete or his/her representatives. For that reason, Ukad has not previously been able to comment publicly in respect of the charge brought against Mr. Whyte. Since the charge against Mr. Whyte has been withdrawn, neither Ukad nor Mr. Whyte intend to make any further public comment in respect of this matter. In accordance with the confidentiality provisions of the UK anti-doping rules, any public comments made by anyone other than Ukad or Mr. Whyte will not be made on the basis of understanding of the full facts. So there you have it, people. That's the full statement. Very wordy statement, which kind of recycles the same information over and over again, a little unnecessarily for my taste. But what did we learn from it? Well, there was an adverse finding. There were 2 metabolites of steroids found in, I guess, his A sample, and I'm assuming his B sample too. But they were such small amounts that they've decided to withdraw the charge, also because of the fact that he was tested by VADA a couple days prior, and the VADA test came out negative. And VADA is like seen as the world leader when it comes to anti-doping. So the VADA test was clean, and several other UKAD tests were clean. It was just that one test, apparently, which showed trace amounts of steroid metabolites. So according to them, it was part of a isolated contamination incident. Now, is that a contamination in terms of what got into Dillian Whyte's body, or a contamination in terms of what got into the sample after it was taken from Dillian Whyte's body? Who knows? But it is what it is. Bottom line, Dillian Whyte has been cleared by UKAD, cleared by the British board, and now he can go on with his career and fight again. And he's going to fight in Saudi Arabia anyway, but now this draws a line underneath the issue with UKAD in the UK. So, yeah, all cleared up. Obviously, some people are going to say that this is fishy and they don't trust it, especially the way it's come out of the blue. But hey, you never know what goes on behind the scenes in boxing. We can only speculate. How do we know who's innocent and how do we know who's guilty? We don't. So it is what it is. And I do have to kind of reiterate some of the things that other people have said with regards to doping in the United States, because there is a finger being pointed at the UK at the moment with regards to doping in boxing, which is pretty absurd because there have been plenty of fighters caught in the United States for doping. And what's worse is that the drug testing in the UK is far more stringent and far more commonplace than it is in the United States. A lot of commissions in America, they only test you on the day of the fight. You know, after the fight, they test you then, which is pretty much the same as having no testing at all. The majority of fights in America, they don't have VADA testing. So obviously, doping is going to be absolutely rampant. In the UK, from British title level and up, they have UKAD testing, which is similar to VADA testing in the sense that it's random, Olympic style testing. That's what UKAD do in the UK. And everybody above British title level and above is subject to it. There's nothing like that in America. Yeah. In America, it's all voluntary. If the promoter decides that, a particular fight has to have proper testing, then it gets proper testing. But for the most part, there's no proper testing in American boxing. That's not to say that there isn't people doping in the UK, because there absolutely is. Professional sports in general are dirty. They're full of people taking all kinds of stuff. Yeah? But let's not act as though it's only going on in the UK. No, it's going on everywhere. In fact, it's probably even more rampant in America than it is in the UK. You saw Jarrell Miller test positive for how many substances? How long had Jarrell Miller been doing that for? You think it was a one-off for the AJ fight? Really? A guy who's over 300 pounds with the kind of work rate that he has? How long had he been doing all that? How had he been getting away with it? Well, you asked the American commissions how he'd been getting away with it, because that was the first time Jarrell Miller had undergone Olympic-style drug testing, to my knowledge, during his professional boxing career. Not until he got a world title shot against the biggest cash cow in the heavyweight division did he actually get properly drug tested in America. I mean, we've seen, for example, Julian Williams. He was supposed to rematch Jarrett Hurd, right? Well, Jarrett Hurd wanted the rematch, but Julian Williams said only if there's VADA testing. And all of a sudden, Jarrett Hurd didn't want to fight. When he told him there's VADA testing. What happened? So, yeah, you make it out what you will. But there you have it, people. Dillian Whyte's Ukad situation has finally been cleared up. I thought this was going to drag on forever. It's good that it's finally been cleared up and he can move on with his career and be involved in good fights. Will the WBC reinstate him as mandatory challenger? Because they had put Tyson Fury as the mandatory challenger, right? Instead of Dillian Whyte? I don't think so. I think that they're going to keep Tyson Fury right where he is as the mandatory for Deontay Wilder, and they're still going to make Dillian Whyte wait till 2021. I'll be amazed if they reverse their decision. Because it's clear that the WBC are far closer to Al Heyman than they are to Eddie Hearn. And therefore, they're more likely to, help Heyman out and help his fighters out than help Hearn's fighters out. That's certainly how it appears. And look, this is not unprecedented in boxing. I mean, it happens. The WBO have had a very close relationship with Frank Warren. The WBO have been very close with Frank Warren for decades. And in recent times, also Bob Arum has been close to the WBO. And in fact, that's why Al Heyman and Fox are now not recognizing the WBO as a legitimate sanctioning body, because they feel as though the WBO is far too biased in favor of Frank Warren and Bob Arum fighters and is biased against Al Heyman fighters. So they've basically boycotted the WBO. So look, different promoters have got cozy relationships with different sanctioning bodies. It just so happens that the WBC is a bit more cozy with Al Heyman than it is with Eddie Hearn, and therefore Eddie Hearn fighters like Dillian Whyte suffer as a result. So if Dillian Whyte can't get a Deontay Wilder in the ring, and I have to reiterate something I said in a recent video, Deontay Wilder would have made more money fighting Dillian Whyte rather than rematching Luis Ortiz. Facts. And not only would he have made more money, he would have been fighting a man who was at least 10 years younger than Luis Ortiz and who had a far better resume than Luis Ortiz. Facts. It would have been far better to have a Dillian Whyte on his resume than Luis Ortiz twice. What's Ortiz done in the past 2 years since their first fight? Nothing. What's Dillian Whyte done? Well, he's been beating people like Joseph Parker and Oscar Rivas. Much better opponents than Luis Ortiz has been beaten. So stop talking rubbish. All these Wilder fanboys out there. Demented, deluded people. If you really are a true boxing fan and you're not just some demented fanboy, then you'll understand it would have been far better for Wilder to face Dillian Whyte than Luis Ortiz again. Better financially, better in terms of credibility, better in terms of relevance. Yeah? Dillian Whyte's ranked higher than Luis Ortiz. I mean, it goes on and on. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up There's no contract and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.